Hey, everybody. I am so happy to welcome you to this afternoon's session with one of my very best friends, Abi Desjardins. She is the director of the Acceleration Portfolio and the acting director of research and at the National Security Innovation Network, or ENSIGN, where we both work. So Abi does the really cool and schmexy portfolio of acceleration, where she brings technology and new businesses into the national security space, and we're going to hear more about that today. But she's definitely a transformational leader. And maybe just as a side note, I kind of want to be like her when I grow up. So I take a lot of notes around work with her. She's a result-driven woman, specializing in strategic and operational planning, as well as execution, business development, and customer success management. What we like to call her actually is the barrier buster. So that's her nickname. She's done some really deep dives on policies, both in Afghanistan and in other foreign areas that have been just really at the top of the decision-making ladder for some general officers, both at home and abroad. Just really amazing talent. Although we do kind of joke that her creativity with names is not quite as high as her creativity with assessing policy. And we affectionately joke that if it were up to her, her baby girl would be named Baby, because that would be the first name that she would come up with. But I'm so happy to welcome her. She's going to talk about how the National Security Innovation Network welcomes and makes a path for innovators, entrepreneurs, and intrapreneurs. And with that, I am so happy to turn the floor over to my good friend, Abi Desjardins.
Thanks, Trish. It is nice to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to the community that you have here. So as Trish mentioned, I'm horrible with naming things, definitely not creative, but luckily my fiance stepped in and my daughter was spared the name of baby or girl, and instead has a very unique name of Reverie. So thank goodness for teams, because it really is all about teamwork. And much like teamwork, at ENSIGN, we believe in building communities, networks of problem solvers to help solve DoD's most pressing needs. So for those of you unfamiliar with ENSIGN, we are a program office within the Office of Research and Engineering, and we are geographically spread across the United States. We have 11 regions that are staffed by regional directors, and then they have a team of folks, university program directors, that are embedded at universities. That number fluctuates throughout the year as we onboard and offboard various university program directors. But right now we're currently sitting at 21 university program directors. So the regional directors, are responsible for building out the regional ecosystem, understanding the DoD mission partners that are in those ecosystems. And the university program directors are responsible for really diving deep into their university ecosystems and the surrounding areas to understand the venture community, the VC community, and just the fantastic talent that sits and lives inside of universities. So I've got a map for you of the United States, although we do have a couple of folks in not CONUS. We've got somebody over in Europe, and then we have somebody sitting in Hawaii, which we are all lobbying will be our next offsite location, because who doesn't want to go to Hawaii, right? So here you can see our university partners. So you'll see on the map here, we have a couple of university partners where we do not have university program directors, and that's because we partner with universities to deliver some of our programming. Some of that falls outside of the acceleration portfolio, but we in fact do work with universities in the acceleration portfolio, and I will talk to that in just a few minutes. So this is just a higher level map of the regions. You can see it in the previous map, but this just kind of extracts out and just shows you all of the regions. So if you have interest in learning more about the regional breakout, we have a fantastic website that lists out the regional directors for each of the regions and their contact information. And I'll have a link to that at the end of the presentation. All right, so the other side of the house from the regional network team is we have our programmatic side. So we have 3 portfolios that deliver programming. We have our national service, which is really focused on creating pathways to inject new talent into the Department of Defense. We have the collaboration portfolio, which is really focused on integrating new communities of problem solvers. And of course, the acceleration portfolio, thanks Trish, where I am the portfolio director for, which is responsible for working with and in some cases developing new dual use ventures to solve DoD's needs. So here's a quick rundown of our programs of record. So we have, the typical DoD parlance, programs of record. We also have pilot activities that we run. These are all geared towards helping to solve DoD needs. As Trish mentioned, the talk is about entrepreneurs. We really do span the spectrum. So we have programming in both national service and collaboration that works with inside the DoD. We've got a 3-day design course that's run out of national service. We have hackathons that are run out of collaboration, really geared at leveraging the fantastic talent that sits inside the Department of Defense to solve the problems. And we also have great programming that's targeted at students. So some of you may be familiar with Hacking for Defense, but we also have Capstone, which is a program that's designed around students to work on a special project for the Department of Defense. We also have X-Force Fellows, which is a summer fellowship for students to work with Department of Defense. We have Tech Squad, which is early career. So folks that are just out of school, really focused on solving tech problems for the Department of Defense. And then we've got a couple of other things out there. We've got one that's a pretty cool opportunity called TNSF, which is the Technology and National Security Fellowship. And that's where, STEM talented folks have the opportunity to work as a government employee for a year, either within the Department of Defense or Congress. It's a fantastic opportunity for folks. And then we also have, the programs that are in the acceleration portfolio, which I'm sure you guys are more interested in hearing about, which also span the spectrum, right? So we have a program called the Defense Innovation Accelerator, which is taking DoD lab technology and exposing it to enterprising entrepreneurs. Where we then work with a delivery partner to form a team. So it's much like, eHarmony or any of the other matchmaking services that exist. It's, take a profile of the individuals and then match them up with the most promising other folks from that particular cohort, introduce them to the DoD inventor, and then set them free with their imagination to think of alternative use cases for the DoD technology, with the hope and intention that at the end of the 4 to 6 month accelerator program, that they form a company and they go on to license the technology. So that one is really exciting for us because it's bonusing off of the DoD's talent and the investment that's already been made in technology, while also simultaneously spinning out dual use ventures. We have another pilot program that's very similar, which is taking DoD lab technology and exposing it to existing companies and seeing if those existing companies are willing to pivot their offering or spin up a new line, a new solution around that particular DoD technology to meet the needs of the Department of Defense, as well as commercial industry. Both of those programs, those folks, those entrepreneurs are not doing it alone. Throughout the course of the program, they are exposed to DoD end users. So folks who can really help them understand what the problem is and help them design a solution that is best targeted to meet those particular DoD needs. We also have in the acceleration portfolio a program called Propel. And in that particular program, we work with a DoD mission partner. So we just closed out a Propel in the Mid-Atlantic region working with AFRL Information Directorate, where we executed a 4-month-long accelerator program where we brought in, I think our cohort was, I should know this right off the top of my head, but it's Friday afternoon, a handful of dual use ventures. And we paired them really closely with some DoD folks coming out of AFRL to help them refine their understanding of the DoD use cases. We also helped them understand potential offerings that were coming out from the Department of Defense, meaning what contract vehicles were coming, what contract vehicles were out there, how they should structure their pitch materials to help better position themselves for getting contracts with the department. as well as introducing them to members of the VC community to help strengthen the ties there. Because we in the department understand we can't do this alone. We can't help to spur the non-traditional community and broaden the national security innovation base by ourselves. And more often than not, we need the help of the VC community to help spur the investment in these solutions so that when it is ready, the department can come in and can pick it up and run with it. Let's see, we also have a program called STARTS. This one is for a little bit more higher TRL solutions. So we're looking typically at TRL 6+. So this is something that it's your typical one-day pitch event. We work with a DoD problem sponsor, get a really good problem set. We execute a one-day pitch event where the most promising companies can pitch their solution. And at the conclusion of it, something happens, right? It depends upon what our DoD mission partner has available. If they have, prize authority, then they can award financial prizes at the conclusion to the most promising companies. Or if they have the ability to write an MOU for a SBIR, then they can guarantee, an MOU to the, again, most promising companies that come out of that particular STARTS event. So there's a lot of really great opportunities for companies to engage with the Department of Defense through our programming. I mentioned at the start of this that we also have touch points with academic institutions. Again, it's all in the same vein of creating dual use ventures, but we have a pilot program that's launching right now where we're actively recruiting academics who are interested in licensing the university IP and spinning out dual use ventures around that solution. So we are targeting 44 companies to come out of various institutions across the United States. And so we're really excited about this because, once again, the department invests a lot in basic research in universities. And we're really interested in seeing if we can take some of that basic research investment and really accelerate it to the next point, along with exposing the great solutions, the great ideas to the broader ENSIGN network and the broader ENSIGN community, because ENSIGN really is about building that network of problem solvers. And we can't do that, like I said, alone. Let's see, I'm getting ahead of my slides. That's what happens on a Friday afternoon, right? So in terms of impact, the slide here discusses ENSIGN since FY19, but we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary on October 14th. So the numbers here only reflect the last few fiscal years, which is pretty impressive, right? So we have done a lot. We have helped the Department of Defense identify some really fantastic, unique solutions to their needs. We have helped a significant number of companies help, get exposed to the Department of Defense. And specifically with the acceleration portfolio, the numbers that I have for the last 5 years is that we have worked with over 500 early stage ventures who have gone on to secure over $258 million in DoD funding and over $600 million in private investment. And so one really great example that we have specific to the acceleration portfolio is the most recent winner of the X-Tech Search 5 was actually a Propel alumni company. So that's, fantastic news. And then another finalist in that particular activity participated in 3 ENSIGN programs, including 2 acceleration portfolio programming. They have gone on to attribute their fantastic success that they have had to ENSIGN and the support that they received throughout the participation in their programming. And they are currently on track to be in 2 DoD programs of record, which is phenomenal. And they have raised over $7 million in private investment and over $7 million in DoD contracts just in the last 2 fiscal years. So, we within the acceleration portfolio specifically focus on helping to do some education, helping to expose to DoD end users, but also really making sure that the Department of Defense has a pathway to access the most viable solutions that come out of our programming. Because the worst thing that we can absolutely do is to flood the marketplace and flood expectations and then not have a pathway in place to actually allow the Department of Defense to access those solutions or those fantastic vendors to actually make money, right? And to sell their offerings back to the Department of Defense. So Trish, I spoke really fast, and I know that we have 15 minutes left. So I don't know if you wanted to turn it over to, Q&A at this point, or if you think that there is anything that I missed, because you have definitely been a part of ENSIGN, and, can back me up on anything that I have missed on this late Friday.
No. We've got a couple great questions that came in via chat, and I'll start with the most recent one from Sean. And that is, how do you become a university partner?
That's a fantastic question. So there's a couple of different ways that you become a university partner. So if you are at a university where we have an embedded university program director, it's simply going and talking to that person and saying, I am interested, whatever that may be, interested in running a Hacking for Defense course, interested in putting some students that you may have through some of our programming, or you yourself becoming an expert. So one of the programs I didn't mention is experts, and that's where we take academics and expose them to DoD end users for a 3-month period of time to act as like a subject matter expert. So they're there to provide guidance and consultation. So there's multiple pathways.
And maybe the second part is call Trish during her day job, because as
Yes.
part of the regional network team, she can help you through that as well. So
Yes.
that would be that. And you know what? I think that this came in earlier. And so what general characteristics displayed from government customers have you seen that are early indicators of success in partnerships with startups? And that's from Sam Parks.
That's a great question. Let's see, where do I start? Willingness and eagerness to communicate. I have spent the majority of my career in the intelligence community, working with folks who have unclassified problems, but are really afraid of talking in an unclassified setting for fear that they will say something wrong. So working with members of the Department of Defense, which includes some elements of the IC, and if you find someone who's very open, who understands the boundaries and understands how they can translate, or be open to having someone help them translate into unclassified terminology or startup terminology, right? Because DoD has its own speak, startups have their own speak, and somewhere in the middle, they may meet in their understanding. And so having somebody who's just willing and open to have those conversations. And I think, really, like I said, having the ability to translate and also not ask for the levitating table when a table is going to be sufficient to meet their needs.
Right. I'm still waiting for my invisibility cloak. So if you could get on that, that would be great. So you've had a chance to mention some of the other programs by name. How about the programs within your own portfolio?
Oh, yeah. So I actually have a couple slides. So I talked about some of them, but I will throw them up on here so people can see them. So I mentioned STARTS. STARTS is the pitch day program. This one, for the most part, our pitch days are open to the public. If you'd like more information, we do have a website listed in the bottom right-hand corner of all the slides, and you can go and get more information on each one of these. But STARTS is really technology vertical specific. So depending upon the DoD mission partner we're working with, for example, 5G, I know we will execute a STARTS program around 5G technology or 5G solutions, whatever it is that our DoD mission partner is struggling with. And that will then be open to anyone to apply to, as well as anyone to listen. So if you're interested in observing a STARTS event, you can find that information on upcoming STARTS, and you are more than welcome to sign up and watch just to learn, observe, and get information.
And about how often are you able to do STARTS? Is it every week, every month?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have the ability to do, I think it's about 10 or 15 a fiscal year. because they can be super simple to do now in this COVID and hopefully soon post-COVID environment where things are virtual. Before COVID, these were done in person. So those were a little bit more challenging, but also had some really great benefits, right? The networking, the sidebar conversations that can happen that are just much more difficult to do in a virtual. So we'll see what the post pandemic looks like, and if the number will scale back. Or if we see more demand, but really we can fluctuate based upon what the needs are from the Department of Defense.
We got one of my favorite questions dropped into chat as we were speaking, and this comes from Mike. And the question is: does a command need to provide funding to participate in the experts program, or any program that ENSIGN runs?
Yeah. So for the most part, no. So because we're a program office, we deliver programming on behalf of the other DoD entities, which is fantastic. That said, with the acceleration portfolio programming, because we're really interested in transition, we're interested in solving the DoD's problem, meaning that we take a solution, we take an early stage prototype and we mature it beyond. Sometimes that does require the DoD mission partner that we're working with to come to the table with funds, whatever that looks like, so that they can award a prototype OT, or they can, have a contract ready to let at the conclusion of a program iteration, so they can continue to work with that particular vendor that they found most promising. So there is a caveat and a hope that there is a plan for the after.
And I also noticed a question from David Schiff. I don't know if you know him, but he asked, do you ever offer CRADAs or access to military ranges or demonstrations as a reward? And I think that was actually for the other panel. So I will turn it back over to you.
We can also answer that. And so that is actually one thing that we are looking into for some of our programming, is establishing relationships with some of the exercises so that we can actually demonstrate. So ENSIGN, at the start of the fiscal year, just did a change in how we are assessing and our performance and those things that we are going to be measuring ourselves against. And one of those key performance objectives is actually getting a certain percentage of the solutions that come out of our programming into a testing environment, which also includes training exercises. So it's absolutely something that we're looking into. Yeah, and I'm just going to advance. So I mentioned STARTS. I mentioned the Defense Innovation Accelerator. I mentioned Propel. And then the one that does not have a slide is Vector. And I did not talk about Vector, but Vector is also really interesting. And that is for, it's a program, dual use accelerator for ENSIGN alumni. So for any individual, any company who participated in any program of ENSIGN, they can apply to go through a dual use accelerator program where, again, they get exposed to DoD end users, hopefully with the intention of securing funds from the DoD at the conclusion.
We have a very important question that came in, I think, from Christy Monaco, specifically for you, something that only you could answer, and that is whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich. I guess this is an inside joke.
It is. It is not. A hot dog is not a sandwich, Christy.
Fantastic. I will ask, like we can't do this with our kids, right? We can't say a favorite, but do you have a favorite memory or a story of something that you've done in acceleration? So I'll ask you maybe that one as a soft pitch, and then maybe something that you can share with the audience, because you've been with ENSIGN now for a little while and you've seen kind of the dark days and the brighter days that we're in right now. So maybe something, really important that you learned or that you tried at the beginning of your time at the National Security Innovation Network that you look back on it now and you say, wow, that was really cool that we picked the lock on that and fixed that problem. So your favorite thing and maybe your favorite lesson learned or your favorite difficulty that got resolved.
Yeah. Can they be the same?
Oh, of course.
Okay. So I killed a program. And for me, that is one of the favorite things that I've done because resources are scarce. And I was given the opportunity to do a return on investment and figure out, is there something there? Is there enough of a unique value proposition for ENSIGN, specifically acceleration portfolio, to continue putting man hours against this particular activity? And in the end, I decided no, because other DoD innovation organizations had already stepped up and were moving forward with it. So it's a success for us. It's something that was super cool to see, is that we were no longer needed to fill that because others were doing it. So that's great. So I think both answered by that one.
How do you explain what you do to people who don't work with the Department of Defense?
So I'm an introvert, so I don't. No. It's challenging. I think it depends upon the context, right? I think the easiest thing to say is I help to make the connections for early stage ventures for folks who get scared about the thought of doing business with the Department of Defense. I make that a little bit easier and less scary and less mystifying.
Awesome. And who's your favorite colleague? Just kidding. No, I'm not going to ask you that question. But there has to be some like cool stories about a specific technology. Like one of the ones that I love talking about from my time in the collaboration portfolio is the landmine simulator. Mm-hmm. I mean, are there some like cool technologies that you can actually mention by name and impress the group with some of the cool stuff that you've done?
There are so many, and if I were Scott Augenbach, they would be at the tip of my tongue and right there, and I could rattle off like 20 of them. But I'm not. So unfortunately, none come to mind right now, and that is not because we haven't done anything that's super cool or transformative. It's just simply that my ability to store that information is greatly diminished right now. So I apologize.
Right. One of the things that we talked about maybe a little bit at the beginning of your bio is your the acting role that you have right now as the director of research. Yeah. And I know that, internally we talk a lot about how do we demonstrate value to the Department of Defense. We're not a beans and bullet organization. So if you could talk just very briefly about the way we communicate our success story to people outside of the organization using some of the data and research that you oversee.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And one that is super complex for this organization because we do so much and we have the 3 different portfolios that have very different focuses, right? From the individuals to early stage ventures. And we're really early in the TRL game. So for those folks who look at us and say, well, you only transitioned, a subset of the solutions coming out of your programs into programs of record. It's true, that's accurate, but that's not our mission, right? Our mission is to really demonstrate knowledge transfer, an eagerness and a willingness to try new things, and to advance some technologies that are out there that the Department of Defense may not have known about. So some of the unique ways that we're trying to demonstrate our impact is looking at network bridges. So we have this geographically dispersed group of regional network team members who are out there on the ground, right, meeting with folks, building new connections and helping to solve problems, not necessarily by reinventing the wheel, but by talking to their colleague in a different region who had a DoD mission partner with the exact same problem who already solved it and making that connection known. So that's one of the ways that we are trying to this year convey what we are doing and our value back to the department. The other one, just real quick, is the number of problems solved. And that can be a variety of things. But really trying to make sure that at the onset of a program iteration, we understand what the expectations are. And at the conclusion, we check back in with that DoD mission partner and say, did you get out of this what you expected to get out of it? And what are your next steps? So really trying to do that follow through to make sure that we are delivering what our DoD mission partners are needing and looking for.
Let's see. Oh, I was just checking for any last minute questions because we're coming a little bit close on time. I could probably actually sit here and talk to you for the rest of the day, but I want to give everybody a chance to do their last minute questions or to drop something in the chat so that I can tell Abby that she's had the great impact that I think she has had with this conversation, and to also get everybody ready for the next event that I will tell you about in just a moment. Let me check the Q&A for one last check. I don't think we're going to top the is a hot dog a sandwich. I really want to know the story behind that question. But no, we're doing great. We're doing great on time. Abby, I really appreciate you spending your Friday afternoon with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Trish, if there's one ask, it looks like I don't have the chat function anymore. If you can drop into the chat for folks the ability to sign up for our newsletter.
Okay, great.
If you have that link handy. If not, I'll shoot it over to you. But it gives the ability for folks if they want just to get updates. But anyways, thank you so much for the time. It was great chatting with you. I wish that I could see many of you in person soon.
Thank you so much, Abby. And just to let you know, as we sign off and you get a chance to sign up for the ENSIGN newsletter and take a little break before our next amazing keynote speech with Safi Bichel, hosted by Josh Marcus at 4 p.m. You will have a chance to still take a look at the chat here, sign up for the ENSIGN newsletter, and check out our website. And just thank you so much, Abby, and thanks to all.